It really just takes one accident, one lawsuit, and suddenly a trucking company isn't just dealing with a banged up rig, they are literally fighting for their very survival. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're looking at the stark, uncompromising reality of commercial trucking lawsuits. It happens way more often than most folks in the industry realize, and man, things escalate with terrifying speed. Okay, let's dive into this, because we really need to shatter a very dangerous illusion right out of the gate. Picture this. A driver rear-ends stop traffic in the pouring rain. The immediate thought? No problem, our insurance will handle it. But standard claims don't stay standard for long. Lawyers appear. Investigators start digging into your entire operation. And before you even know it hit you, you're staring down the barrel of a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. So, who actually gets sued in these situations? Well, this surprises a lot of people. The lawsuit doesn't just name the driver. Plaintiff attorneys cast an incredibly wide net. We're talking the trucking company, the freight broker, the owner of the trailer, and yep, even the third-party maintenance company. Why? Simply put, they want as many financial targets on the board as possible. Trucking companies are massive targets because, frankly, they're viewed totally differently in a courtroom. They're commercially insured, they're seen as the financially responsible party, and honestly, they're viewed as larger payout opportunities. But the real kicker is that commercial trucks are held to astronomically higher safety expectations. When things go wrong, juries are often far more aggressive in punishing trucking companies than they'd ever be with a regular passenger vehicle.
The Deep Dig, uncovering the evidence used against you. I really want you to feel the overwhelming pressure of a legal subpoena here. Investigators, they will review absolutely everything. Your ELD logs, dash cam footage, years and years of maintenance records, dispatch texts, driver qualification files, drug testing history, and even your social media. Literally nothing gets ignored. They're tearing the whole operation apart, just looking for a single weakness. Let's take electronic logging devices, or ELDs, for example. Driver logs instantly become critical evidence. If an investigator finds even a simple hours of service violation, say the ELD shows a driver operating just slightly beyond legal limits right before a crash, the entire narrative flips. Plaintiff attorneys will immediately argue that the company prioritized profit over safety. They'll point straight to fatigue, and let me tell you, juries absolutely hate fatigue-related trucking cases. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how an everyday, completely normal-sounding message can be totally weaponized in a courtroom. Imagine a dispatcher sends a quick text, "Keep driving, customer's waiting." If that driver was already tired and a crash happens later, that single text is getting subpoenaed. The lawsuit will aggressively argue that the company actively encouraged unsafe behavior and pushed their driver way beyond safe limits. This all builds toward proving one devastating word: negligence. Negligence is simply failing to exercise proper care. Let's look at driver qualification files. If a company hired someone with multiple prior reckless driving violations and that driver causes a crash, boom, the lawsuit claims negligent hiring. Or consider maintenance. If they find out a truck's blown tire was actually overdue for a replacement, that delayed maintenance becomes a massive, undeniable negligence argument for operating unsafe equipment. And listen, the investigation definitely does not stop at the terminal gate. Both drivers and companies are heavily investigated online. What you might think of as your private life on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram instantly transforms into court evidence. Attorneys are scouring these platforms looking for risky behavior, contradictions to your defense, or any signs of an unsafe company culture. Once liability is actually established, the financial demands start rolling in. Sure, you've got the cost of vehicle damage and then the medical bills, surgeries, rehab, lost wages, which can easily hit hundreds of thousands. But those pale in comparison to pain and suffering. For permanent injuries, disability, or emotional trauma, pain and suffering claims absolutely dwarf vehicle damage and medical costs combined. This is exactly where lawsuits just explode financially. And when those pain and suffering claims actually convince a jury, we get what the industry fears above all else: a nucleum verdict, a massive jury compensation award, usually exceeding $10 million. And the truly terrifying reality for the trucking industry is that these verdicts are becoming incredibly common. $24 million. In one real case detailed in our source material, a trucking company lost a fatal crash case and the jury awarded $24 million against the carrier. The result? That small company completely collapsed financially right afterward. There's just no coming back from that. This right here illustrates exactly why insurance limits matter so much today. Most carriers out there operate with a standard $1 million primary liability policy.
But as we just saw, modern legal realities and multi-million-dollar exposures blow right past that limit. Without an umbrella insurance policy or excess liability, the company's actual hard assets are left fully exposed to the court. And this brilliantly illustrates why very few of these cases actually make it to trial. Consider this real example. An initial lawsuit demand of $7 million eventually settled for $2.1 million. Insurance defense attorneys step in, and honestly, both sides just want to avoid unpredictable jury risks. Juries are total wildcards, so settlements usually happen months before trial, right after those deep investigations or during mediation. But hey, even if you do settle, the timeline is absolutely brutal. You notify insurance in month 1, sure, but for the next 2 or sometimes even 3 years, you're enduring exhausting legal stress, massive operational distractions, and lost revenue before you ever reach final mediation or a trial. It is a grueling, multi-year drain on an owner's anxiety and their family life. And you know what? The nightmare isn't even over when the gavel drops or the settlement is signed. The lingering business aftermath is harsh. You're looking at insurance renewals that are significantly more expensive. We're talking doubled premiums or even outright canceled policies. On top of that, severe lawsuits completely trash your safety reputation. Brokers might just stop working with your carrier entirely because they actively avoid companies with major claims. Let's move to and see how this builds. The defense playbook, shifting from fear to proactive survival. Smart carriers actually survive by replacing fatal mistakes with proactive protections. Instead of weak hiring, they implement constant, ongoing driver training. They replace poor maintenance with highly aggressive equipment upkeep. They make absolutely sure ELD compliance is flawlessly organized so documents never ever go missing. And they carry umbrella policies rather than just the bare minimum limits. Because if your records are missing, attorneys just assume negligence. You literally have to be organized. And there is one piece of equipment that stands head and shoulders above the rest: dash cams. When it comes down to a he said, she said scenario after a crash, dash cams are your absolute best defense evidence. They can instantly prove false accusations wrong. They show the unsafe actions by passenger vehicles, the sudden lane cuts, the brake checks. Without this footage, lawsuits are incredibly difficult to defend. Dash cams literally save millions. Which brings us to the biggest lesson a lot of truckers learn way too late. Most think, that only happens to the big mega fleets. Wrong. One serious accident can financially destroy owner-operators, small fleets, and growing carriers just as easily, if not more easily, than the big guys. The lawsuits happen fast and they get expensive very, very quickly. So the crucial point is this: prevention matters far, far more than defense. You've got to look at your entire operation, your hiring, your maintenance, your dispatching, and your safety culture long before disaster strikes. Which leaves us with one final, incredibly important question you need to ask yourself. Would your trucking companies survive a major lawsuit today? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helps you prepare and protect your business